member statements. Are there any private member statements? The member for Rockdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak about the terrible situation many small business owners in my electorate have found themselves in following this government's announcement that they'll be introducing 7-day-a-week clearways along Forest Road and Stony Creek Road in Bexley and Arncliffe. Just 2 weeks ago, business owners and residents living and working along 7 kilometres of main road across St George were informed that these clearways would be going ahead, and they had the chance to respond on the paltry offering of replacement parking being proposed by RMS. These people are now faced with the introduction of clearways from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekends, totally killing off their on-street parking. If the Liberal Party actually understood or sought to represent small business, they'd know how important on-street parking is to the trade of many of the suburban shops along retail shopping strips like those found in Bexley and Arncliffe, and they'd never seek to destroy their livelihoods like they are doing here. Similarly, if they knew what it was like to have a house with little or no off-street parking, there's no way in the world that those opposite would entirely remove such much needed on-street residential parking, even on weekends. Mr. Speaker, both Stony Creek Road and Forest Road already have tidal flow clearways along most of their length, as are common across many other areas in Sydney. These morning inbound clearways and evening outbound clearways provide a fair balance between the needs of motorists and those of local business owners and residents. Creating clearways on both sides of the road, not only in the mornings and evenings, but also over the entire day, is simply excessive and unnecessary. In addition to this, the all-day weekend clearways are particularly insulting for many businesses that rely almost exclusively on high weekend trade, particularly those in the hospitality sector. They are also devastating for the many residents along these roads who will no longer be able to feasibly host gatherings at their houses, as visitors won't have anywhere within walking distance to park for large stretches of the road. Mr. Speaker, to add insult to injury, what the government is actually carrying out is the so-called consultation it's proposing. It isn't even the introduction of clearways. It's not about the introduction of clearways. It's apparent that's a foregone conclusion, but it's a provision of replacement parking is what they want to consult on. What's been offered in many places is an offer to line mark angle parking to create a handful of extra spaces on side streets, in many cases up to 1 kilometre away from where the parking has actually been removed. This is simply not good enough, and if those opposite actually knew how important proximity of parking was to many of these small businesses, they wouldn't be able to keep a straight face making such a ridiculous offer. The worst thing is that there is actually the opportunity to expand existing council car parking facilities, particularly at the Bexley Shopping Centre, which would make these proposals far more palatable for business owners, but the government has been unwilling to provide any assistance. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate Bayside Mayor Bill Savranovsky, our area's very own Boris Johnson, who has been fighting against these clearways every step of the way with local residents, along with myself and the member for Cogra. Mayor Savranovsky has repeatedly let RMS know that their second-rate consultations just aren't good enough, and I'm glad we have somebody like him fighting for Bayside. Mr. Speaker, while there may have been a time when the Liberal Party could justify calling itself the party of small business, that period has long since passed. We've seen the destruction along George Street through to Surrey Hills and Anzac Parade during the Minister for Transport's botched roll out of the Sydney Light Rail, and the hundreds of people have lost their livelihoods. The same ministers punctured a hole in the lives of taxi plate owners by decimating their retirement savings and earnings. I suppose it should come as no surprise, and now that he's in charge of roads as well, that he'd find some more people to hurt with more poorly planned decisions like this one. Mr. Speaker, the government needs to take urgent action to pull back on this disastrous clearway and stand up for the hundreds of small business owners and residents who they've got in their crosshairs.
Thank you. The member for Roxdale.